Let's go live now to the German capital. I'm pleased to say we can speak to the political analyst Ulrich Brueckner. Ulrich, thank you so much for your time. I'm trying to judge your age just by looking at you. I imagine you were quite a young boy when the Berlin Wall fell. What do you remember of those days?
Well, I wasn't a boy. I was a student in Berlin, and I was actually watching a football match and got upset because my team lost. And so I didn't know what to do with myself, and I went to Checkpoint Charlie, the checkpoint for foreigners. And people were dancing in the street and celebrating, and by midnight the wall opened and people were flooding through the open gate, and we took them to the main boulevard and partied for the next weeks until Christmas.
I heard a story. I was in Berlin for the World Cup that Germany hosted in 2006, and I met a local who told me that within about a week of the wall falling, West Berlin had run out of chocolate completely because the people from the East had come to buy so much and tasted it and said, so this is what it's really like. Were there really genuine moments like that of, you know what she also said, it just occurred to me, she said on public transport there was almost complete silence. People were so shocked.
Well, the chocolate story is certainly accurate. I was really impressed to see how German sweets were in empty shells while at times this was never the situation that you could see empty shelves in the East, but never in the West. But that was so popular, and every East German who came got a welcoming gift of 100 German marks. And that was mostly used for consumer products that they only heard about, but never really had a chance to enjoy. Public transportation was very popular, and it was packed as never before and after. But that's the good thing about a city with a well-functioning public transportation system.
What were the most difficult things for people who lived on the eastern side of the wall? When I read things and when I listen to programs about life in East Berlin, one of the things that shocks me completely is the activities of the Stasi, of that police force that had informers in almost every single office in the country, in every single social club, in every single institution or area where people would gather, that it occurred to me that it might just make people scared of speaking to a stranger.
Absolutely, and it's not only talking to strangers, but also the situation of talking to people you think you can trust, and then even a family member or someone you know from work could be a spy and could report about your activities, even in the most intimate and private circumstances. This is all reported in the files, and that created a spirit that only exists in totalitarian systems. So the main reason why the wall came down was that people were fed up with this form of a lack of freedom in a totalitarian system and the attractiveness of what the material world in the capitalist side of the West could potentially provide for them.
What was the pressure that the people were putting on the government? Because the government didn't actually want the wall to come down, but they had made a decision that they would make it easier for people from the East to travel to the West, right? And that was the spark that actually sent thousands of people to that wall on the night of November 1989. What were the pressures that the people were putting on the government that made the government concede that they should make travel easier?
Well, the whole system was kind of bankrupt, not only economically and financially, but also morally and as a political vision that could practically compete with what people could see on television or what elderly reported who got the permission to cross the wall for a family reunion once. And then their stories peaked up to life is even more beautiful than you could ever imagine. So there was not so much needed at a time when the political system was so run down that it was only a matter of months or, I guess, less than years until also the economic circumstances would have come to an end of this socialist experiment.
And what was the fallout for those politicians or people who held positions of authority in East Berlin after the collapse of the wall in terms of prosecuting them, or was there a feeling that actually reconciliation was more important? Erich Honecker, who'd been the leader just prior to the wall falling, he was eventually, on grounds of health, I believe, allowed to return to be with family members in Chile, and he was never prosecuted. But what about other people?
That's right. It was very different. Like the top leader got the chance to move to South America. In most other cases, the rule of law was applied, and that was very important, that it's not just a mentality of the winners of this systemic battle who then just execute power the way they could, but it was based on the rule of law, and it was some sort of a cleansing of different institutions based on people who collaborated with the Stasi or committed crimes, that they had no chance to stay in their positions, which was, from a personal point of view, a tragedy because of so many people were facing this, but it was needed as a basis for reconciliation that is still ongoing.
Ulrich, I cannot thank you enough. It's been so interesting to hear what you have to say to us. Ulrich Brueckner speaking to us from Berlin.